What were the dumbest lies you believed when you were a kid? Story number 1. Lost my stuffed animal, a white dog, in the airport in Miami when I was 5. It was my favorite and I was really sad about it. A few weeks later my mom presented me with a brown dog that otherwise looked exactly like the white one I'd lost. She said the workers at the airport had found it and mailed it to us, but he got a tan because he was in Florida. Bought it hook, line and sinker for a few years. Tan dog is now my son's and he's a big fan. Story number 2. I could not understand how all the death scenes in war movies seemed so realistic. So, I asked one of my older brothers how they did it. He proceeded to tell me that they empty out state prisons in the area the movie is being made, dress them up and give them guns and tell them that if they survive the filming then they get to leave jail after. I was told that at around 7 and I believed it till I was around 10. Story number 3. My mom convinced us she had eyes in the back of her head. She could tell us what we were doing in the living room while working in the kitchen facing away from us. We'd test it even further by doing the "how many fingers am I holding up" test and she'd get it right every time. So all little kid evidence concluded that mom did in fact have eyes in the back of her head. It wasn't until I was much older that I randomly noticed the crystal clear reflection in the kitchen window my mom could always see. Story number 3. My older brother pranked me once. I had watched a kids' TV show, I think it was The Electric Company, that featured a guest star who was a tap dancer. My brother convinced me that tap dancers made their tapping sounds not with their feet, but with their mouths. I spent the next several weeks trying to tap dance with my mouth noises before my mom made me quit. Story number 4. When I was a kid I asked my dad if reading enough books really could give you telekinesis like Matilda. He said yes. I spent many years after that thinking I just wasn't doing enough. Story number 5. When I was a kid my dad always told me not to touch the button on your armrest when on an airplane because it was an emergency button. One time when I was like 5 we were flying to visit family and he fell asleep so I pressed it a bunch because I was curious. Nothing happened and I fell asleep thinking it must be broken. I woke up in a stroller with my parents upset because the plane had to make an emergency landing and I started crying because I thought it was my fault. Story number 6. I was in on this lie between my mom and younger sister. My sister was about 5 years old at the time, and my mom convinced her that Benadryl was truth serum. My mom would threaten to give it to my sister if she knew she was lying. It was so hilarious, but my sister seriously believed it and would get upset. Story number 7. My dad told me he was colorblind to the extreme when I was 8. The sky is green, the grass is blue. Go was red, stop was green. The ultimate, white people look black and black people look white. My mom made him fix that last statement quick when I asked her, "Mommy, do I look black to you too?" She was livid, but I was so gullible at that age. Story number 8. When I was a child, I got upset after a button came off of my shirt. My mother told me not to worry and that if I placed the button under a rock in the yard, the button fairy would replace it with a quarter. I believed it, and to my mother's dismay, she discovered I had pulled the buttons off of every shirt in my closet. To this day, 40 years later, shirt buttons can still be found under random rocks in my parents' backyard. Story number 9. That leprechauns were real. I spent many hours and several iterations, designing traps to try and catch one. Because if you caught one, you would get his pot of gold. A few times I tried, I got a piece of gold, and that's what kept the magic going. Turns out my dad was painting rocks with gold paint and sneaking them into my traps at night. It is actually a really sweet memory as a kid, but it fell apart when I started asking other kids how their traps were going, and no one knew what I was talking about. Story number 10. When my sister and I were kids, our mom lied and told us that she was a Grammy-nominated and winning singer. She said that all of the trophies were in our attic, knowing that neither of us would ever go in and check for them. My sister and I bragged to all of our friends about it for years, only to discover that our mom isn't a very good singer at all. We've held this lie over her head for nearly 20 years now, so this past Christmas, we gifted her with a fake Grammy that has her name engraved and her favorite music category citing her as the winner of it. She laughed until she cried. Story number 11. My granddad would tell me that the buttons/switches to turn on the interior lights in his car were actually buttons for ejector seats. I would be scared to go anywhere near them in case I accidentally yeeted myself out of his Ford Focus. He was a funny dude. Story number 12. My mother once said to me when I was about 2 years old, "You have a little Indian in you," by which she meant, I have some Native American ancestry. Well, a few days before she said that, I had just seen the movie, The Indian in the Cupboard, so I thought there was literally a tiny man that lived in my body. Story number 13. My dad told my brother and I, 6 and 9, that the red switch in our house that actually just turned off the heating, was the house self-destruct switch and that we were never supposed to touch it. Cue the night 5 years later when our pilot light went out and my dad flipped that switch only for us, now 11 and 14, to start screaming and running for the front door. He laughed his ass off when he realized what happened. Story number 14. One time I was at my dad's and him and a friend were hanging outside sipping beers and smoking cigarettes while I was decapitating dandelions with my sweet-ass plastic ninja sword. My dad never let me have soda when I was a kid. His friend left and my dad went inside to do dishes. I saw a 7-Up can on the deck table and sprinted towards and then took a huge swig. Turns out they had been asking and putting their cig butts in there. I run inside and throw up and my dad goes, "What happened, what happened?" I lied and said nothing, but he figured it out. So, he told me all the soda he buys tastes like that even if they are unopened, that I believed him for a few years till I was like 9. Story number 15. That if you sit too close to the TV or computer screen you'll go blind. I was told that during the summer of 5th grade, then got glasses in 6th grade. All I heard was a "told you," as I tried on my first pair of glasses and was told that my younger sister won't need glasses because she listened. She got her glasses less than a year later. Story number 16. The teachers in my school told us if you pull the fire alarm, ink shoots out on your hands that doesn't wash off for a few days so they know who pulled it. I was 26 when I found out it's all a lie. Story number 17. A college nearby has a cougar as its mascot and they sell cougar cheese. It's delicious. My uncles told me long ago that it's made from the milk of cougars. Made sense to me. But, then I got older, early 20s, and I saw a can of that Cougar Gold and wondered how they milked the cougars. And, it hit me like a ton of bricks. You can't just have a cougar milk farm with angry cougars hooked up to milking machines. It just isn't going to fly. I got a chuckle out of the image and realized that I was a grown man who believed that they were milking cougars down at the college and turning it into cheese. Story number 18. My dad told me the boogeyman lived inside of the cassette tape deck of his car. I definitely believed him and it freaked me out. Now I realize he just didn't want me messing with his radio. Story number 19. My dad told me that the reason why police officers spend so much time at donut shops is because the shop owners actually need them there to shoot the holes in the pastries to provide them with the classic donut shape. I found out this was a lie when my dad caught me trying to get behind the counter at Dunkin' Donuts one time because I wanted to see the shooting. Story number 20. I have 3 that were really dumb. 1. My older brother told me that if you put your Pokemon cards in the microwave then they become real. I started a fire doing this and ruined cards that would now be worth a lot of money. Story number 21. On my 5th birthday, my older sister gave me a pack of gum. It was my first time trying gum, and I swallowed it. I told my sister, and she told me that because I swallowed the gum, I would die in 7 years. I was so sad. I never told my mom, because I didn't want to make her sad. So I lived the next 7 years of my life awaiting my death. My mom couldn't understand what my problem was on my 12th birthday. I was just sad. Finally, before bed, I told her how much I loved her and that I hoped she would miss me. She said, "What are you talking about?" I told her that I was going to die before she woke up. My sister got yelled at, and my mom assured me I would not die before the morning. So yeah, I thought I was dying for 7 years.